Hello, you have joined the Script Mistress for Scene 29 Character Archetype Series, The Caregiver. I'm your host, Amber Bosworth. We took a week off, and this is kind of coming out a little late, but I don't know if you can see, but I'm kind of moving around. I'm in a different spot. There's a TV behind me. Just life gets crazy. Just moved to a new place, so getting used to this, but I wanted to get this out at least this week. Now, with the character archetype series, I barely scratched the surface way back in my episode 11, where I went over the scene 11. When I went over the archetype series, kind of just broke them down, went in a little bit, but now we're going to go in very deep. If you want to listen to that podcast episode, you can go to www.thescriptmistress.com/scene 11. Now, if you want to stay up to date on my podcasts, events, and challenges, get on my mailing list at thescriptmistress.com. I also have this whole episode on video at thescriptmistress.com/scene 29 for your enjoyment, along with the free download that I'm going to mention at the end of the episode. Now, I've also started the Script Mistress YouTube channel, so maybe you're catching that there. I have the link for it in the show notes. If you're watching it there, please like and subscribe. Now, we have just finished, not really just finished, but we finished the April Ink to Screen Screenwriting Challenge. Finalists will be announced this Sunday, May 14th, and the winner will be announced on May 15th. The May Screenwriting Challenge is open for registration. I run the monthly short screenwriting challenge where writers get 5 days to write a new 5-page screenplay based on a prompt sent out the first day of the challenge. The winner gets $150, and every writer gets detailed feedback on their writing. If you submit a script, whether it's like you're late or anything like that, I always give feedback no matter what. As long as you submit a completed script, I will give you feedback. Check it all out at thescriptmistress.com/ink to screen. And the May challenge will run from the 17th to the 21st. So all next week, Wednesday to Sunday. So sign up now. And I have a little secret, like a little exciting news, like for this challenge. We're going to do something a little different, switch it up a little bit. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope there's something for everybody in there. So go ahead and check it out. Now, in case you forgot, here again are the 12 character archetypes in Carl Jung's world. The warrior, the child, the orphan, the creator, the caregiver, the mentor, the joker, the magician, the ruler, the rebel, the lover, the seducer. Now, we made it all the way to the caregiver. That is where we are today. Selfless acts are rare in real life and even rarer in film and television. The caregiver character archetype lives their entire journey trying to help others at all costs. They care about friends, family, or all of the above more than anything else. You can really rely on them. And I think it's amazing with Mother's Day this Sunday. So this weekend, I think Mother's Day, this is a perfect episode to talk about the caregiver. The strengths of the caregiver: big heart, selfless acts, generous. Weaknesses of the caregiver: easily deceived, one-track mind, value other survival over their own. Now, their motivation: protect those they love at all costs. They live to serve. Does that sound like somebody you might know? Now, character archetype examples. I'll get more into this. Samwise Gamgee. So not necessarily moms in there, but Mrs. Weasley and Beverly Goldberg. Those are the kind of typical caregiver archetype examples. Just like their real life counterparts, you do not want to underestimate a caregiver archetype. This caregiver is not just a brow mopping I sneeze, excuse me. Soft-spoken saint who fades into the background. A well-formed caregiver can be a source of hope or conflict, comedy or heartache. They can be every bit as feisty and bullheaded as they are gentle and wise. The caregiver is that neighbor who made you a casserole because she heard about your ingrown toenail. You know who else is a caregiver? The crusty, sarcastic, mustard-stain attorney who's working pro bono to stop an eviction. An archetype now isn't a template for cookie-cutter characters, like mentioned this before. It's a collection of universally recognized traits that give us a skeleton for designing a character that is both familiar and distinctive. So, Who will your caregiver be? To help you answer this question, we'll kind of go over the defining traits of the caregiver archetype, the function of caregivers within their stories, caregiver archetype examples you'll recognize from your favorite books and movies. So let's do this. When you love something, you don't threaten it. You don't punish it. You fight for it. You take care of it. You put it first. Leslie Knope, Parks and Recreation. Another great caregiver archetype. Of course, she kind of fits into a lot, but this is for caregiver. What is the caregiver archetype? Also known as the saint, helper, parent, and nurturer, the caregiver lives to serve others. This character is infinitely selfless and self-sacrificing, but that doesn't mean they're perfect. The caregiver's tendency to self-neglect can create a burden for other characters who find themselves caring for the caregiver. They also get serious tunnel vision. We often think of this archetype as a side character, but we do sometimes see them in a leading role. If your protagonist is a caregiver, don't forget to give them flaws. A saint who's too saintly has no room to grow and no cause for conflict, and that can be really boring to see on screen and kind of like, ugh, you push it to the side. Caregiver characteristics: the good, the bad, and the overbearing. Caregivers run the full personality spectrum from mousy to mouthy, but there are a handful of defining traits that help your readers or watchers immediately understand your character's whole deal. The motivation: the caregiver is driven by compassion and lives for helping others. As for what help means, that's an area where you can play around. Do they strive to be a protector for their family or a savior to society? The caregiver archetype tends to be generous, selfless, protective, quick to forgive, optimistic, humble, stable, reliable, structured, proactive. Now, caregivers need very little to feel complete in their lives. While their mission is never ending, they themselves are satisfied with a simple life as long as there is love in it. And I'm sure if you think of any of the popular caregiver archetypes, you'll really understand that. And it's something of their own making too. It's kind of their own mission that they put on themselves. Like nobody's necessarily given it to them. It's something that they have taken up. That's another trait of the caregiver. The bad. The caregiver archetype also tends to be overprotective, self-neglecting, easily deceived, single-minded, over-involved. Caregivers know that their capacity for compassion and problem solving surpasses that of the other characters. As a result, they can have a hard time backing off and allowing loved ones to solve their problems. At an early age, at an early age, I learned that people make mistakes, and you have to decide if their mistakes are bigger than your love for them. Lisa Carter, The Hate You Give. Now, what do character archetypes do that are, maybe typical? So, here are some typical ways a character archetype might influence your plot. Fix things. Sometimes the caregiver is the hero that the hero fails to be, especially when a problem can only be solved by compassion or communication. This is partly because the caregiver is so hands on. This character is a doer, not an advisor. While the mentor or the jester are offering the hero their best insight, the caregiver is stepping in and taking action. Sometimes they save the day by doing this, and sometimes they make things worse. Leslie Knope, Parks and Recreation, is the perfect example of a caregiver whose single-minded overcaring exhausts her loved ones, crosses boundaries, and births chaos. The caregiver archetype can zero in way too hard on their pure-hearted mission. As a result, they might fail to recognize when their help is not helpful. They can also steamroll others, convinced that they truly do know what's best. But it's some of their good qualities that make them so heartwarming and hard to really hate. So you kind of forgive them those kind of things. They humanize the villain. Whether it's for the benefit of the protagonist or the benefit of the audience, caregivers have a wonderful skill. They can help us see the suffering or moral complexity within your story's biggest jerk face. While everyone else is reeling from the villain's villainy, it's the caregiver who asks, "What's your damage?" Without sass or irony, just pure hearted, really wanting to know what is motivating them. Give refuge to the protagonist. There are several character archetypes that protagonists can turn to for advice, cheerleading, and insight. But it's the caregiver who's there with a warm blanket and a bowl of soup. In other words, this character is less about empowering the protagonist and more about creating solutions for them, even if all they can do is provide a listening ear and a safe place to recover. There are many Beths in the world, shy and quiet, sitting in corners till needed, and living for others so cheerfully that no one sees the sacrifices till the little cricket on the hearth stops chirping and the sweet, sunshiny presence vanishes, leaving silence and shadow behind. It's from Little Women. Now, character archetype examples in popular culture. And we've kind of gone over a couple, trying to figure out where you've seen this character before. Let's take a look. So, just going back to that Little Women, Beth March in Little Women. Beth actually relishes sitting back in the shadows as a silent support while her sisters shine. She eagerly cares for those in need, even when it means exposing herself to scarlet fever and devastating over a century's worth of readers whose mothers could have warned them but didn't. Lisa Carter, The Hate You Give. Lisa Carter is the voice of compassion in a story full of conflict. She provides nuanced perspectives for her children and for us as readers. But despite her ability to empathize with dangerous people, the safety of her family is the only consideration when she has a decision to make. Gary Walsh, Veep. Selena Mayer is the worst, but her body man does not care. Gary sacrifices everything for her mental, emotional, and physical protection, including taking a sneeze bullet for her. As most caregivers would, Gary does get discouraged by Selena's complete lack of appreciation, but he still shows up. Marlin, Finding Nemo. Sometimes a caregiver takes the form of a helicopter parent. Marlin's whole life revolves around Nemo's well-being, but his father knows best attitude drives his son into dangerous waters. If you want to study the character arc of a caregiver archetype, Marlin is a great place to start. He never loses the over-eager dad qualities that make him lovable, but he does learn to let Nemo speak for his own needs. A child caregiver archetype sits with an elder who is in bed, drinking a glass of water. Craft your caregiver. Archetypes help us ground unique characters and traits and motivations that feel real to our readers. But it's up to you and your story how your caregiver talks, who they prioritize, and how they spend their time. You decide what their wounds are and how they define the good of others. And of course, you choose the flaws that make them stand out and give them room to grow. Now, I've added resources, the links to where I found a couple of articles that can dive a little bit deeper into the archetypes and kind of help you. The writing action, again, I created that new worksheet specifically for this 12-week run of archetypes. Download the character archetype worksheet and fill it out for whichever character archetype you are working on. So it's just kind of a blank slate. It works for everything. So go back, kind of look at the strengths and weaknesses of each character, print them out for every single one of them and have them there for you. This can really help you out. You can also get it at thescriptmistress.com/archetypes. Feel free to share some of your thoughts on the Facebook page, the Ink to Screen Facebook page, or email me at amber@thescriptmistress.com to get extra help. Now, don't forget about the monthly screenwriting challenge. May is open for registration. We start next week on Wednesday. You could win $150 and you'd get feedback on your writing, all for $15. Check it all out at thescriptmistress.com/ink to screen. Thank you so much for listening or writing or watching. Might be a little different next week back here, but I will be showing up. Like and follow the show wherever you are listening. Talk soon, and until then, happy writing.